Very exciting, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Officially welcome, welcome. It's amazingly Wednesday, April 28th, which is crazy. And this is the ProCon 2021 Arts and Culture Peer Community. It's our second official session with everybody, but we spent some time together yesterday. I'm Ronda Lutterman, Vice President, Development and Arts and Culture at JCC Association of North America. Give you a heads up that the session is being recorded. And we understand some people don't want to be recorded, in which case, please feel free to turn off your camera, though we encourage everyone who's comfortable to stay visible because we love feeling like we're all together as much as we can. Joining me today from JCC Association is my delightful better half, the super fabulous Isabel Marish, who is Program Manager, Development and Arts and Culture. And our names appear as hosts at the top of your participant list. Feel free to chat with us anytime if you have needs or questions. We're also so excited that in a moment, we're going to talk to very special artist, educator, and guest, Ronda Spinak, who is Artistic Director of the Braid, and actor Kimberly Green, who along with Lisa Del Sesto, who's Director of Arts and Ideas at the Bender JCC of Greater Washington, they're going to be with us for a live salon story and conversation. And we're very excited to help make that happen today. And also, in a little while, we'll have time again together in self-selected breakouts to continue the deep dives we began yesterday into areas of importance for us. And we're looking forward to giving you that as well. Isabel.
Hello, everyone. So happy to have you all here. We aspire for every person to feel that they belong at ProCon and are working to build inclusive spaces in which all people feel welcome, respected, safe, and fully included. To that end, we encourage you all to consider the following suggestions to begin our time together. We invite you to rename yourself in Zoom with your name, agency, and if you're comfortable, adding your preferred personal pronouns. We have enabled closed captioning, and you have the option to turn it off at any time using the button on the bottom of your toolbar. Randy, over to you.
All right. We're very excited and we're so thrilled that we were able to find a way to make this happen in everyone's schedule. So without further ado, I'm really delighted to welcome talented NAACP Theater Awards nominated actress and dancer Kimberly Green, who's with us today with the Braid Theater for this very special salon story performance. And if you haven't looked yet, Kimberly's full bio is on our conference platform, Spot Me. Under today's session, we encourage you to visit after. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you, Kimberly. Unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Beautiful. I have chills.
I'm going to let everybody weigh in for a moment before we continue. And I want to say that, Kimberly, thank you for making time for us today and for sharing that gorgeous piece with us. And we're going to talk a little the evolution of that piece. And Isabel's telling me I'm muted. Am I muted? No, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. Again, our great thanks for joining us. And we know that you need to head off. You made time for us in a busy day, which is why we started so close to the beginning. But we really, really wanted to give everybody a taste of the beautiful work that the Braid does. And more importantly, to remind everybody that we have the ability to experience performance, even a few steps further away from one another than ideally we would. We're so grateful for your presence, Kimberly, and your beautiful performance. And we hope you saw it coming through the chat in real time. We will definitely share that back with you. And we hope our send off of praise carries you through what is a busy, busy rest of your day. And we're going to give a big wave of thank you and see you later to Kimberly, our performance. So special to start our day with you. Thanks, love. So nice. Well, I'm recovering, which is great. And normally as you're in the theater and you're gathering your purse and you're gathering your hat and you're making sure you don't leave the program on the seat, you have a moment to gather yourself. And we don't have those things when we're like this together. So I'm really grateful that Kimberly was able to do that with us. And I want to share that Kimberly was performing the monologue, The Men in My Life by Marissa Tiamphuk G. I may pronounce that wrong, and our next guest will correct me. Marissa is a former lawyer and teacher. She's now a Jewish writer and entrepreneur. She was raised in Brooklyn. She lives in Los Angeles, and her full bio will be shared with you along with many post-conference resources when we're done with the conference. But it's one of the most interesting things about the work that the Braid does is this notion that when we tell story, you assume it's her story because it's a first person story, but that's the beauty of story, right? When you own a story, it becomes your story and it becomes a layered version of your story. So to me, that is a spectacular thing to see happen. And now I want to welcome Ronda Spinak, who is the artistic director of the Braid, who's joining us today. And I want to thank you and your team for agreeing to be part of the JCC Association Professional Conference. Rhonda is the artistic director at the Braid, which is formerly the Jewish Women's Theater in Santa Monica, California. And she created the Braid Salon Theater Series, curating and producing more than 62 original Jewish themed shows. Her full bio is accessible via the Spot Me conference platform, but I'm going to ask her to tell a little bit more about the amazing work that she does with the Braid, especially because we just got to experience a tiny piece of a signature salon performance. Tell us a little bit about the history of the Braid for those who are new to your work, please. And welcome, Rhonda.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you for inviting us here. We're really super excited to share our unique style of theater, which everybody experienced, which is at the intersection of storytelling and theater. We don't have sets or props or costumes, just these incredible, talented actors who are performing mostly true stories, and that was a true story. What we do, we call salon theater, and Randy, we've pioneered this art form. It's a compilation of stories and songs and plays curated around a theme and grounded in Jewish culture and experience. Just to give a little context, The Men in My Life, which you just heard by Marissa, is one of 10 stories from our salon show, True Colors, which shines a light on Jews of color, that's the theme, their yearnings and challenges that strive for acceptance in Judaism and in our country. We debuted that particular show 2 years ago live on stage. We were ahead of the curve and performed all over LA and actually ended up that run in Palo Alto at the Oshman Family JCC. We had been there for 5 years. We were kind of like their resident theater company, performing all of our season shows up there. But then when the pandemic struck, because you see the power of the way that we tell stories right to you, which is what we do on stage as well, we have been able to reprise this show, True Colors, and it's been performed in Philadelphia and Oklahoma and New Jersey, and on the afternoon of High Holiday at Central Synagogue, and in Winnipeg. And it's been amazing, the response on Zoom. But now to your bigger question about our history. So this is our 13th year. We had our bat mitzvah in October, which was very exciting. We've been blessed to be able to explore in all those 60 plus salons these incredible themes of forgiveness and healing and love and food and so much more. But the Braid, formerly known as Jewish Women's Theater, was born, talk about food, sitting around the kitchen table over a plate of bagels. And a bunch of us women were talking about how Jewish women needed to be represented in theater. And
that's like such a Jewish genesis, this moment of all these women, all these bagels. And at that moment, the epiphany that representation was needed. Very, very much appreciate the origin story. Very much appreciate
I love that, right? And we all had the desire to give voice to the lives of Jewish women in an authentic and true way. And I don't really talk about this much but really truly to debunk the dangerous stereotypes that followed us Jewish women from the 20th century into the 21st century. But when we started, Randy, we didn't have any money. We didn't have a space. We didn't have a reputation. We just had this idea of what we really wanted to do. And so we took our cue from the Jewish women of yesteryear who hosted salons in their homes and decided to put this very unique art form up in homes, and that's how we performed initially. And then very quickly it took off, and we started to perform in synagogues and museums and universities, JCCs, and even prisons, which was pretty interesting and wonderful. Jewish prisoners. And for the first many years, we highlighted Jewish women's stories because that was our mission, including a groundbreaking show putting the stories of women rabbis on stage for the very first time. And actually, Ralph at the Rochester JCC booked that and performed that there, which, hi Ralph, I know you're here. But what we discovered was that men started coming to our shows. And yes, maybe initially they were dragged by their women folk, but then they started coming on their own and they loved it. And we began to understand that they had important stories to tell. So very quickly, we came to understand that we needed to share the stories of all Jews, regardless of ethnic background, country of origin, observance, sexuality, gender, or even age. Our writers are 13 to 98. They're lay writers, they're professional writers, they're Orthodox, they're convert, they're secular, and they're even non-Jews who have partners or friends who are Jews and their stories have Jewish values. We've even produced a Palestinian poet's piece, and I think she's a poet laureate now. We've also performed stories from Russian Jews and Sephardic Jews and Latino Jews and Persians and Mizrahi Jews from nearly every country where Jews are from. In fact, we've become known as the go-to Jewish story company. And what's really interesting is that from these salons and these individual stories, we've been able to group them together in one-person shows, and we've taken some to off-Broadway. And so that's kind of the genesis story.
Thank you. That's incredible. And I have to say that as you're talking about the different ways in which you've continued to innovate, grow, establish yourself, and also remain nimble in response to both the times around you and also needs of your partners, needs of the community, that really is that's the reason we wanted you here today, because our communities, as you know, are going through and have been going through this unprecedented, challenging time, which through which we're not completely done, but partners that are able to pivot with us and be nimble with us are really very, very special. So what I'd like to do now actually is invite Lisa Del Sesto from the JCC of Greater Washington to join us. And Lisa, I know that you, along with other partners, brought the Braid this Passover to the JCC as part of your Women's Seder. I know that there was an evolution of program as you continue to make that happen. And I'd love for you to take the floor for a second and share with us a little bit about that experience, and then we'll continue this conversation, all three of us. And Isabel, you can give Lisa the floor. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Thank you,
and it's
Rhonda.
so good to see the Braid folks again, because they truly are incredible, if that wasn't made clear by Kimberly's performance. So a little background on the Women's Seder at Bender JCC. And it's interesting because, Rhonda, as I was listening to you speak about the evolution of the Braid, you were talking about, the idea of elevating women's voices and adding women's voices into theater. And in many ways, the evolution of the Women's Seder at our JCC is not so different, which is that we wanted to create a safe space for women to convene, to tell the, Exodus stories about women, to tell their own stories, to hear each other's stories, and to find this sense of intimacy and connection that is kind of, Passover really celebrates and sets the stage for, but in so many ways it sets the stage for men to have those experiences. And so much like the original Women's Seders back in the 1960s, we wanted to have a seat at the table, at the head of the table for that matter, for women to tell the traditional stories and their own stories. And that's really from there, the idea of the Women's Seder blossomed. And it's really this incredible marriage of tradition and ritual with modernity and contemporary retelling and celebration. And, we say new twists on ancient traditions. So, you know, what's so wonderful about this Women's Seder is, as I mentioned, you know, it's a safe space, and that safe space is really created from the way we set the scene. And Randy, I am quickly going to share just a couple of slides because I think that I have some photos that really capture.
Love that you're doing that. Perfect.
All right, so hang on just a second. All right, so these are logos from the past 5 years of our Women's Seder, and the one in the middle is the one that was this year, which we very appropriately called Stories of Breaking Free. But in the past, you know, we had this Seder set up in person, and there was a cocktail hour. So we had flowers and wine and candles, and we had quotes around the room from women, Jewish, non-Jewish, old, young, biblical, contemporary. We had the most elaborate menu. I think my caterer really started to resent me because I'm surprisingly controlling, perhaps not so surprisingly, controlling over the menu as well as every other aspect of the Seder. So our food would speak to the theme. We decorated the room in keeping with the theme. One year the Seder was Still We Rise. And so we had moon imagery everywhere. And we had these, one of actually our camp counselors who does art created these moons in different phases that we hung around the room. And then we had the participation. We had a song leader. We also invited a Jewish female a cappella group that would perform music. Everyone at the Seder would take turns reading from the Haggadah, much like you would do at your own Seder at home with your friends and family. And so much of the connectedness in the room and the energy of the room is just organic from being in a room together. And so the challenge this year was, how do we create that intimacy? How do we create that connection? How do we create that shared feeling when we're standing at home in our own homes, staring at a computer screen? And happily, right around the time I was starting to panic and be like, it's Women's Seder time, I don't have a plan, what am I going to do? Sarah Shalva from Baltimore JCC calls me and is like, do you know about this group called the Braid? They tell stories and it's amazing. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. She's like, what if we did a Passover themed program? And I'm like, what if we did a Women's Seder where we had the stories woven throughout? And that was like the connecting piece of this incredible Women's Seder. And so that's what we did. We got together with the Braid. We had all these conversations about which stories made the most sense to tell. And in the end, we decided we wanted stories by women and performed by women, because again, we really just wanted to highlight that women's experience. And there's something to be said about having only women in a room. No offense to the men here today, but every once in a while, we like to hear ourselves and each other talk. So that is how this year's Seder was born. And again, we came back to that theme of storytelling, which I think we as programmers, we as arts programmers, that's always in the back of our head, is how we tell stories, whose stories we tell, and empowering our communities to tell stories. So together with the Braid, we made that happen for folks all over. We had 10, including Bender, we had 10 participating JCCs, and we're joined with people from Florida to Colorado to New York to Maryland. So it was incredible.
Amazing, amazing. You got to me before I could get to you, which is I was going to ask you how many JCC partners you had for the event. And I know that there were sort of, you know, you sort of blew through the pre-COVID moments with your Seder and said, you know, it's organic and it just happens. And I put something in the chat that was contrary to that, which is thoughtful, creative, intentional planning. All of those things. We all know this, right? We're arts and culture programmers. So people, when an event goes great, everybody goes, oh, it's so organic. It just happened. Well, actually, guys, what happened is you, the professionals, partnered with other beautiful professionals and organically made something happen because you took every pain to organize and think through all of the variables. And then you're right, you release it like we do everything that's valuable at some point or another, and you hope it takes flight. So I just want to sort of give you the kudos for the pre-COVID moment, and also address that you did something beautiful this year and innovative. And, you know, a lot of the conversations we started to have yesterday and we're going to continue to have today are about the need to continue to energize our communities in new ways, because last Passover, everything was, so we were just in a sort of free fall situation. By the time this moment came around, you really need to dig into, invite people to do something different and think differently and elevate whatever this new hybridity or digital experience or virtual experience is going to be. And you managed to do that by finding the right partners who could match you. And I think that's so thrilling. And again, guys, we just got a tiny taste of it with Kimberly today, but you know, there's a lot to mine here when we think about partnering and remaining nimble. Isabel, do you have a question for Lisa? I know, because I just saw it. Are you going to throw that in?
I will throw it in, and I will also share it in the chat. I also sometimes have trouble multitasking, believe it or not.
So you're right. We're going to ask Lisa a question, and we're going to ask everybody to answer it as well, but in the chat, so we can sort of start getting a sense of what this conversation looks like in our strange virtual way.
Yes. So moving forward, how might you envision working with performance organizations? Lisa, I'll let you share with us first. And I invite all of our colleagues on the call today to share in the chat and ask, what might we move forward with performance?
So I actually was talking to Jody from the Braid yesterday, and we were just kind of chit-chatting about, you know, what from the JCC perspective the next year is going to bring, and the Braid was trying to being mindful of what the JCCs might want and therefore what they can put together to provide. And I think, you know, all of our JCCs look different. We know that and we all wear multiple hats, too many most of the time. And so, you know, one thing the Braid does, which is incredible, is they come to you with a complete package, and they say, you know, we can do, like Rhonda mentioned, the true colors. We can do a showcase of stories about Jews of color, and they can really just come to you with a package, and you can market it. You can, you know, pick out the package that makes the most sense for your audience. And a lot of the work is done, and you really just get to present this incredibly professional, sleek, moving product. Or in the case for me, which is, you know, my favorite part of my job, is when I get to be creative and there's a challenge and I get to be like, okay, I see you challenge, but I'm smarter than you. Watch me show you how. And so what, you know, I loved working with the Braid to kind of create this brand new thing. And so I think, you know, the next year it's going to be a little bit of both, right? It's working with organizations and bringing performances that kind of stand on their own, and they can just be really strong additions to our programming repertoire. But I think that there are also opportunities to really customize something for your community based on your size, based on your key demographics, based on the moment in the world, right? You know, I think the Jews of Colors stories was so important right now, always, but felt particularly relevant right now. And I think they have incredible stories that can feel very timely. And so I think, you know, the marriage of art and timeliness and conversation is something that I think the performance organizations really help us, you know. Like I always say, we don't always need to start the conversation, but we need to be part of the conversation. And so I think we can do that through performance art. We can do that through our other arts programming.
I think that's incredible. And I also want to just say to both of you, in your experience at Bender and/or Rhonda, as you have worked with people, can you quickly share, are there opportunities, or have you built opportunities in some of these events for the local communities, whether through a digital experience or an in-person experience, has been invited to contribute a story or to begin thinking about a story? Has that ever been part of the fabric of the way you deliver the work you do?
We have done that. When we did our Southern tour, we included a piece from a writer from the South. And subsequently from that tour, a show that we just produced in our salon in March, somebody saw that show and then submitted a piece. And it got in that show, which was called Family Matters. When we were also touring the South, I had a piece from a rabbi who worked out of New Orleans, and we pulled out one of our stories and we put one of her stories in so that her congregation could be a part of it. We're very flexible and very nimble. And, you know, yes is the answer. to
That's a
that
good
question.
answer.
We-
Lisa.
Randy, can I jump in just for 1 second? Because I was
Sure.
scanning the chat and there's an excellent question there that I really want to answer.
Do it.
The question was, are trans women included in the Women's Theater? And my answer is 100,010% yes. We have specific language we always include with our women's programming that says all those identifying as women are welcome to join. And when I say, you know, an inclusive space, a comfortable space for women to share, I truly mean that. And so my answer is yes, yes, yes.
Well, being that this is the arts and culture peer cohort, it would be upsetting if the answer was no, because our whole MO is yes and, right? So I'm thrilled that that's the answer. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, but I'm also glad that you clarified. And I think it's important for us, certainly right now, but always, to remember that that's a big piece of the work that we do. And that when we say we're diverse and we're open door and we're big tent, we're not a big tent for just a tiny piece of the tent. If we're big tent, we're big tent. We have to be brave. And we'll have another session on that in about an hour. So I'm hoping you'll join that as well. Listen, the reason I asked the question specifically about local components and how we're interacting with both digital and other is because, this is an ongoing conversation for us. It's an ongoing conversation. It's part of the deep work that Isabel and I are doing. Lisa, I love when you say that your favorite part of the job is hearing a challenge or seeing a challenge and saying, hey, challenge, I see you, I'm smarter than you are. And I think that's, I want to say for the record, that feeling of, hey, challenge, I see you and I'm smarter than you is something that I think about a lot. And I also, in the context of this cohort of people, I want to say out loud, you don't have to be smarter than your challenge by yourself. There are currently 98 people on this call. There were 120 yesterday. There were 1,000 plus, you don't have to be smarter than your challenge by yourself. The purpose of this is not only to share ideas and to share the work that beautiful artists are sharing with us, and incredible not-for-profits like the Braid, who will, bring you suggestions, bring you fully packaged ideas, be nimble with you to think through what comes next. You also have to look to your left and look to your right. Not right now, because, I've got a bowl full of tuna on one side and something on the left, but, to
the boxes to your left.
Philosophically, you need to look around you, exactly, and realize that you have resources left and right, and we're here for you, but also your colleagues are here for you. So as we know that hybrid is here to stay, and this is an ongoing conversation, it's our work to explore how to marry our in-person experiences and our virtual experiences and the other opportunities that we have. And that's why we really wanted the Braid to join us. They have an incredible history of working with Jewish communities, making partnerships happen. They've shown us they're innovative and elastic when change occurs. They're open to building new ways creatively with us. Eventive did the same thing yesterday in our vendor hall. They showed us they were invested, being part of our hybrid future. These are good partners to have. So that's what's going to help keep us moving forward through our recovery, through our community's recovery. We're going to need to identify partners that help us tell our stories, even when our stories change. And that's very, very important. Rhonda.
Yeah, I just want to add to what you just said. When the pandemic hit, we knew that we had to slash our prices. And what we did is we encouraged communities to come together and share and pool resources. And it just made sense at that point. And so as we go forward with this hybrid, whatever that's going to be, and we will figure that out as we go, we are open to doing that as well. Because like Lisa said, not all JCCs are made the same. And so some need to work together and some need to do it on their own. So I just wanted to point that out as something that we're mindful of and open to doing.
On that note, I'd love to just chime in here a little bit. I've worked with the Braid on 2 projects. Susan and Rhonda are fantastic. The first show we did was their Women Rabbi show, and we produced that ourselves using our own local actors. So I know some of you might want to bring the Braid in. Some of you have your own theater companies and might want to produce something. So they are open to that as well. And then this last year, we did their Matzo Ball Diaries, which is a lighter but equally powerful piece, which we had planned to produce ourselves with local actors. And when we switched to an online season this year because of the pandemic, instead of hiring our local actors, we partnered with Rhonda and Susan and used their Los Angeles actors to present the show for our audiences. So I wanted to add that they are open to all different scenarios if you don't want to bring in a group, but you want to produce for yourself.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate the jump in. And that's fantastic. I just think that's fantastic. Listen, I just want to thank the Braid for being with us today and for sharing wonderful Kimberly with us and for helping us share stories and being the keeper of the stories. In a few minutes, I'm also going to help us make a connection to the other work that Isabel and I are going to continue to do this year in service of our recovering and our recentering in our communities. And I will share also, like, this is the purpose of JFest and our JFest grant and pilot. Some of you were with us on April 7th when we launched JFest on Virtual J, and we're really working on the what I'd call the integration of digital delivery of an arts and culture experience of excellence that really only comes alive when you take the next step and integrate a local component, which is why I asked the local component and engagement piece. So as we continue our conversations today and then tomorrow about JFest and the future of hybridity in our communities, and when you hear from Isabel and I as JFest continues to evolve and grow, we're really hoping many of you will opt in and be our creative partners, because we're looking forward to elevating magnificent content and working with you on developing the local tentacles that will ground you in your communities as you recenter and reopen in different ways, because most of you are already open. So again, because we have to keep our day moving, we could spend, as always, so much more time, but I want to thank Lisa for sharing her experience, the 10 partners that went in with Lisa on this incredible Women's Seder, making, I'm sure, just a beautiful and special experience for so many. And in particular, the gang from the Braid, Rhonda and her team, Susan and everybody. Thank you for being with us today. We're gonna release you back to the work that you do, the important work that you do. And we're gonna all say a quick goodbye to you so we can continue with our session. But so grateful that you shared some time with us, and thanks for bringing your beautiful performer.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I find it difficult to end a piece of a program and launch into the next piece of a program, because again, I sort of feel like I'm missing that moment where I get to take my jacket and put it on the side and think for a moment. We don't really have that. That's the challenge of ProCon, isn't it? We're going from one thing to the next. Those of you who've been at JCC Maccabi relate to that. I know Marcy does. So here we are. Any quick observations about the experience of Kimberly through the screen? For those of you who may have been programming digital, it's very different when you're the programmer and you throw a digital experience out to your community than when you're on the other end and you actually get invited to a digital experience. So I'm wondering if anybody wants to share any sort of, was there a revelation at all as you watched Kimberly? Was there something new about that experience, or have you all essentially had a version of that already? I'm happy to hear in the chat. I'm happy to have you on mute. Sharing.
I think that what was new for me was the level of personification and being the drama. I've read many such things, and of course I've seen them in movies, but this was much, much more personal and therefore much, much more effective.
Very interesting. Renita, I'm looking, professional actors can transmit and break the Zoom wall. Yes. Personal experiences, yes.
This is Jamie from Detroit. Hi, everyone. It
I
actually left me with a question, because we haven't dived into Zoom theater very much. And I can't help but wonder, with the Braid, they have LA actors. So I wonder if they have film training, because stage acting, film acting are very different. And Zoom acting must be closer to film acting, because what we saw today was great acting, but not big enough for stage. You know what I mean? So I'm just really interested to know, like, what set of skills do the people who are doing this really well all share? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I'm going to answer very quickly and just say, I think that a good actor is a good actor. And I think when you go from, you go between mediums all the time. Actors, this same actor on a stage would be able to fill the stage. This same actor on film might need to be even smaller because of the way the camera's catching her. That's just the function of great artists. They know how to switch. That's my short answer.
Can I respond to that real quick?
Marcy, of course.
So I think that what they mentioned earlier in that in this session about the Braid, and we had them when they were called Jewish Women's Theater in Memphis. And I love that they've changed their name because it does feel a little bit more inclusive.
Yep.
And it wasn't all Jewish people and it wasn't all women. And our audience was a little bit confused. Is it only for women? Are men allowed to come? Like, who's in the performance? And so it's, I think the name change is a really good thing. But they, like they said in the beginning, it's sort of a hybrid between theater and storytelling. And so the bigness that you might need in terms of like performing a play on stage is a little bit different than the bigness that you would need and the type of like how space you take up as a storyteller are a little bit different. And so just, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that it's like a hybrid between theater and storytelling. The space that you take up looks a little bit different, and what they do is actually really perfect for that, in my opinion.
I think that's helpful. And I'll also just say this, which is, as you know, as with everything right now, you can only control what you can control, right? So the reality is you will optimize your performance if you're doing it through a virtual delivery system. You'll optimize your performance if and when you're able to do a hybrid in person and digital. And it doesn't change the fact that someone is watching on their phone. And that's just part of our sort of tacit understanding that the world has changed and we can't control every element of our delivery system. We can only be thoughtful, intentional, and try to say, to maximize this experience with your communities, here's what we recommend. To maximize this experience, here's the protocol that we're suggesting to you. And hope that that's the kind of relationship that you have with your constituents. And the truth is that everybody will experience it differently, and that's okay.
Can I jump in, Randy? I just have one thing to add.
Sure.
So thank you. I had some internet problems, so I jumped in and realized that it's the former JWT. And so I wanted to say that we've also presented 3 or 4 different artists already in the past in our theater from JWT. And those of us who are lucky to have a theater, but it's 2 days of lighting and, lighting adjustments. This is an incredible opportunity. JWT is a great resource. There's many people, but I would say that we also have started presenting some comedians, but they want to only do storytelling. They don't want to do comedy shows. So I just want to say storytelling in the Zoom environment will save you a lot of money from a stage perspective. I also think that there are a lot of comedians that will do a storytelling show as well. So I just wanted to mention that I've presented, I think, Rain Pryor and Wendy Hammers and Monica Piper, and these are great women that come out of JWT. So it's just another resource, and storytelling does translate.
Thank you.
Randy, can I jump in with one more comment too?
Yeah, this is our final moment because I'm going to shift us over. Go ahead.
Because I know not everyone has theaters, and when hopefully we can all be back in person, this also lends itself to like dinner theater kind of staging, using a social hall or a gallery and setting it up, because it's so intimate, because the best part of it is that one-on-one with the storyteller. I don't think a theater is a prerequisite to really putting on a super successful evening with especially an organization like the Braid. So I don't think that should feel like it's a hurdle to overcome.
Thank you, Lisa. I agree with you. And I think that there are lots of creative ways to gather, and depending on your campus, and depending on the weather, you can have literally a circle of an audience around a performer in the middle. There's a way to do that outside. There's a way, there are lots of flexible spaces and ways to integrate live. But to your point, Pam, there's also an advantage sometimes to the economics of digital. And look, that's going to be the needle we're threading for the next while. What are the experiences we're willing to abdicate happening in person, either because they deliver more cleanly online, or because they answer a budget question online, or because they have access in a different way online, or partnership in a different way online? And what is irrefutably something we want to create that happens in our rooms, in our buildings? And we don't have that answer. That's an ongoing conversation. But I want to thank all of you for jumping in. And again, these are This is the tachlis stuff, right? This is the stuff we have to figure out. I want to give you time together because we're a big group and I want to make sure there's time to break out today. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to invite Isabel again to show us our set of rooms. We got great notes back from you yesterday. I know it wasn't enough time. It's never going to feel like enough time, but we're going to send you off again to have a little more time and to certainly hopefully meet new people and think and talk about different things. You'll have about 25 minutes in the rooms. Isabel and I are out here. If you need us, come find us and we will take care of what's going on. Encouraging you to let all voices be heard and excited for you that you can select, hopefully, and self-select your groups. Isabel, I would allow them to pick. And those of you who are unable to self-select at the end will quickly be able to ask you and pull you and put you in the rooms that you need. We have asked again several of your colleagues to be the gentle, creative moderators of your breakouts. Their job is really just to keep the conversation going and to also capture some of the bigger thinking maybe that's happening there. And we'll collect that and share that back post-conference. I want to just take a moment and thank today's facilitators in our breakout rooms and also yesterday's facilitators for having loaned us their expertise and their heads and hearts and hands as they took notes. And I'm going to remind them, Isabel's going to throw something in the chat, which is her email. You probably all have it tattooed on your foreheads by now, but when you can, please send them your notes to Isabel. So we can gather. We've got some wonderful stuff from yesterday. We'll do a little bit of amalgamating and we'll find the best way to share back with everybody. Now that we're returning and people are still, I think, coming in, I just want to ask people if they want to throw into the chat any of this, if there was a strong takeaway from your breakout. I would love for you to feel free to throw it in the chat as we continue to move ourselves through. And we will keep our eyes on it and feel free to shout out as well. If you have something you want the room to hear, this is that time. We have a few minutes. Visual tours of galleries has become a very important piece. Matching grant, interesting.
It's a new idea for me. I'm gonna use it now.
All right, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that in the notes so we can share it broadly, because even though we're a lot of people, there are going to be some wonderful things that we're going to be able to pull out and share broadly, which is great. Fantastic. Staffing. Separating personal versus work equipment. When you figure that one out, would you please let me know? That's fantastic. Thank you, Palisades. Specific networks created on email or Zoom for JCCs with galleries, live theater, etc. You know, Randy, I'm just going to take a minute to talk about that for a second. That's a new idea that comes up every 6 months or so. And I say that sort of with glee, this idea that we're both great as sort of a big bucket where we can all share broadly our ideas, but also that sometimes it's important to say, we're going to have a film festival room, we're going to have a gallery space room. We did a survey a while back, it was pre-COVID, so we had some data on how many of you have live performance spaces, how many of you have gallery spaces, how do you use them, who's using their dance studio. All of that is incredibly meaningful, and a lot of that data is obsolete and will continue to be fluid in every way we define fluidity for the next 6 to 12 months as we continue to recover and move through the pandemic and see the different ways our communities re-enter. The other piece, of course, is geography and how we work together regionally and what that gives us. We'll continue to divide and bring you together in as many different ways as will be useful to you. And some of it is really up to you to let us know, you know, what we have an idea, is this useful, is it doable, and we'll let you know. We may need your help to make it happen, but we'll definitely do it. More resources, yes. Yes, indeed. Amen to more resources. Very good. Very, very good. Thank you. We're going to, again, capture chat as well as our notes and continue. I'm aware that today is another long day and there's a lot of wonderful opportunity today. So I'm going to continue to move us forward as I keep an eye on the clock and let you guys stretch your legs and take a break before what happens at 2:30. I'm hoping a lot of you will come back and join us. So, and there are multiple things happening throughout the day. Isabel's going to share some stuff as well. And then at the end of the day, there's like a madness schedule that I really want you guys to try. So I'll share that with you too. At 2:30 Eastern time, you have your first enrichment elective opportunity. If there are multiple people from a JCC, we all strongly recommend that you divide and conquer and really see as much as you can, so that when you come back to your communities after post-conference to do your debrief, you have like a rich vocabulary of options, opportunities, and conversations that you can draw from. I'm going to give a first place plug for our Arts and Culture Enrichment Elective, which is an art and social justice program called The Art of the Essential Conversation, using cultural events to provoke, engage, and activate community. We have a remarkable guest joining us, Kendall Pinkney, and it's not to be missed. We'll have some incredible conversations and another very different performance at the top of that, an auditory performance where we're going to listen to something and respond to it. So strongly recommend you join us if you can. If you can't, because you've already marked your schedule with some other fantastic opportunities, because I know we've given you a plethora of choices, find someone and send them to the Essential Conversation. Maybe think about who doesn't find art and culture essential in your JCC. Throw them into the mix and have them join us. Let's change some hearts and minds together this afternoon. So that's at 2:30. Thursday, we have our second enrichment elective, which is about building resilience in our communities through story. We sort of touched it today a little bit, and we'll continue to do that work together in the enrichment elective on Thursday. We have remarkable artists from Poland, a group, a team, a duo called Me Poland, who have been building the most beautiful artifacts, particularly through their mezuzah project, where they trace the outline of where a mezuzah hung on a door frame that they find throughout Eastern Europe and Poland, and they cast a bronze mezuzah from the sort of whisper of a memory of a door, of a family, of a people. And it's incredible, and it's about how we continue to connect our stories and build strength and resilience. And a special nod to Esther Arvid for having shared Me Poland with us. They've become part of our extended family of artist providers, and we couldn't be more happy to welcome them. They are JFest artist-educator. So again, another plug for JFest. You'll keep your ears and eyes open. We're going to get you beautiful art on the continental level with wraparound local resources, and that's what Thursdays is. So we'll have that, another great opportunity to bring collaborators with you to that session. Isabel, tell us what else we have coming our way.
Thank you, Randy. So we are absolutely amazed, floored that we've been able to provide you with this multifaceted conference at no cost to your JCCs. And it was made possible by our very generous ProCon 2021 sponsors. As some of you, many of you got to engage with Eventive yesterday, they have sponsored our arts and culture peer community. Please pop in and say hello to them at any time in the virtual vendor hall. We will be having another virtual vendor hall session, drop-in session, tomorrow, April 29th from 11:45 to 2:45 Eastern Standard Time. And sponsors will be available throughout that time for live, engaging, and informative video breakouts, and you'll see demos and all that good stuff. And you will be able to engage with them also by dropping in and getting their contact information and chatting with them. Today is very special also because at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have JCC Excellence Showcase. And really the purpose of this hour-long block is rooted in the fact that our colleagues are our best teachers. We showcase that today with one another, and we would love for you to join these 30-minute sessions with your colleagues where they will be sharing JCC initiatives in programming, staff recruiting and retention, visionary management, marketing and media. A variety of programs and initiatives will be showcased. And this is a tremendous opportunity for you to learn more from your peers and to figure out how to replicate some of these programs, which were pre-COVID, during COVID, hybrid in your communities. And you can go deeper with some of the things that you were discussing in your breakouts by coming to these 30-minute sessions and being able to hear how people accomplished certain programs and initiatives and ask questions. So more opportunities to connect and share with one another. You can find the links in Spot Me, just as many of you most likely found us today. And again, that's at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there are 17 sessions to choose from. And we will also be providing a post-conference booklet of resources with the over 60 incredible submissions that we received. We were blown away. A reminder, and I'll wrap soon, I promise, that this is a community that remains in conversation beyond this conference and the value of the JCC movement as it pertains to the remarkable professional staff and community. Randy, I'll let you close us out.
I just want to say quickly about the showcase that Isabel put it together, and she did a fantastic job. And there's so many opportunities to see what your colleagues are doing, and I strongly encourage a visit. And again, as Isabel just began to say, you are the community, you are each other's best and most resilient resources. So please remember, lean on each other, reach out to each other. Join us again this afternoon to spend some time with Kendall Pinkney and a few of your colleagues who will share the way they press forward through brave, important, critical civic conversations using the unique engagement tool that is arts and culture. And again, we will see you soon, guys. Thank you so much. It's amazing. We started today with Kimberly. We had a story, the most personal story with one voice. It became a voice that we all understood and shared. And that's the sort of sacredness of the work that you do in your communities, really, by telling stories and retelling stories. You're reminding your JCC communities that they belong, that their stories count, that their voices count. And I'm so grateful we had this time. Thanks so much, everybody. On behalf of Isabel and myself, have the best rest of your day.
Have a wonderful day. Hope to see more of you soon. Be well.